Now, if anybody's lived around Austin for any length of time, they're certainly familiar with what we now refer to as the Moonlight Towers. Well, back in 1892, 1893 time frame, a dam was constructed across the Colorado River on the west side of Austin. The water that was impounded behind that dam was known as Lake McDonald, and it provided some really neat riparian entertainments for the Austinites, but more importantly, they were able to generate electricity. The first time Austin had had electricity. Well, one of the top priorities in Austin was to try to illuminate the city. 10 years before, they had a series of murders that possibly was never solved, but Austin being hilly and all around, and it was very difficult and quite expensive to try to run, street lights. And somebody came up with a great idea that around the world there were these light towers, and there was a city up north that was wanting to sell theirs, and so the city of Austin purchased 31 Moonlight Towers, and they were placed in strategic locations around the city. The illumination was provided by what we know as carbon arc. Carbon arc was a series of carbon rods, and the arcing between the two rods provided an extremely bright light. The problem with that was that the rods needed to be adjusted periodically, and so the city hired men to climb the Moonlight Towers and to adjust in the arc. So as it turns out, two of the men working for the city fell from one of the towers, and both of them died. This happened over about a 4-year period. There was Gilbert Seawright, who died in 1885, or 1895 rather, and Lewis Henna, who we see right here, and he died in 1898. If you could see between the beyond the tree here, you would actually be able to see one of the Moonlight Towers. Like I said, there were 31 towers erected originally. We're down to just 15 today. Now, there was a tower that was located at the corner of Guadalupe and West 9th Street. Well, it was kind of a bad area. There were, when the towers were built, people would climb the towers just for the heck of it, and there were a few people that had actually fallen from the tower and were killed. That particular Moonlight Tower, it was said that one of the victims of the Servant Girl Annihilator murders was found in that area as well. Now, moving forward in time a little bit, in about 1830 or 1931, young boys who were attaining the age of 12 years were expected to climb the Moonlight Tower. It was sort of a rite of passage, if you will. And there was a fellow by the name of Jamie Fowler. Jamie and a friend decided they would climb the tower, and they picked the one at 9th and Guadalupe, which is right across from the History Center. So Jamie and his friend, they climbed the tower all the way to the top, and Jamie's got a death grip on the rail up there, and as he looks down, about the same time he lost his grip on reality, he lost his grip on the tower, and down he fell, down through the middle, bouncing off each of the girders as he fell, hit the ground, gash on his head, knocked smooth out, but alive. They hauled him off to the hospital, and a week or so later, he came out of it, and none the worse for wear. So that was one. And, as all 12-year-old boys will do, they're out riding their bicycle, and one day, Jamie was hit by a car, and 2 wheels passed over him. But again, he was unscathed. That was 2. Well, by the late 1930s, early 1940s, war was raging in Europe, and a lot of the Americans, Jamie was right in his early 20s. They signed up to go fight for the country. In 1944, Jamie, along with his comrades. I think they were with the 82nd Airborne, but they're in the town of Bastogne, Belgium, and they're completely surrounded by the German Wehrmacht. Things really were looking bad for Jamie and his companions. The weather changed, and a general by the name of George Patton was able to arrive with his armored division. They routed the Germans, and for a third time, Jamie had survived. Jamie came back to Austin after the war, joined the Austin Police Department as his father had done before him, married, had children, and at some point in time he decided that things would be better out in Arizona, so he moved out to Arizona, where he continued to be a police officer. He got to the point where he could retire. He retired from service, and at the ripe old age of 79 years old, Jamie passed peacefully away. So that's the story of the Moonlight Towers.